All right, well, thank you very much. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Love is the law, love and obey.
All right, I want to thank Leaping Laughter for hosting this event, making it possible. I want to thank Harper and Rufus for coping with me while I'm here. Not always easy to do. And I want to thank all of you for coming to my little show of Thelema and the Yezidi devil worshippers. And when I decided to make this information available and promote this talk, I really agonized over the phrase devil worshippers for obvious reasons. I'm not trying to promote any kind of hostility toward these people. But the whole point of this material was to explore an alleged connection between Thelema and the Yezidi. And if nothing else, that's what we have in common. If you've been a Thelemite for more than 5 minutes and you haven't been accused of being a devil worshiper, get out of your house, okay? You've been sitting at home too long. At the very least, this is what we have in common with the Yezidi people. And whether or not they're actually devil worshippers turns out to be a much more complex question than it sounds like at first. So we're going to explore that in great detail. So it's nice to meet some new people. If you don't know me already and you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find me on Facebook as this guy, Ozzy Rasa, because one cannot pursue lofty spiritual goals and, banish the phantasms of ego without a really fucking cool Facebook name. So that's me on Facebook. If you're not already my friend, please become my friend. I'd love to chat with you. We can talk. You guys are cool. I'm lonely. This is my outlet. So please check me out. Before we get started, thank you. Likewise. Before we get started, a note on scholarship. I think it's really awesome that the OTO has raised the bar very high on scholarship. I actually quit the OTO for many years and came back several years ago, partly because I saw a very high level of scholarship happening, and that was impressive to me. That's my thing. I was a professor for about 8 years. I was a professional scholar. I love scholarship. At the same time, scholarship does not equal magic, and we should keep that in mind, okay? And I'm trying to balance my own work between real scholarly stuff and that in-between fuzzy, eldritch kind of space where real magic happens. And I think that's okay as long as you're honest about it. So I will try to point out most of the material I present today will be mainstream scholarly work. But when I'm going out there, when I'm dipping my toe in the great inane, I will try to at least be honest about that and say, hey, this is my fucking weird idea. Don't know if it's really true, but it's kind of cool, okay? So I want to try to balance scholarship with that kind of mysterious in-between space where real magic is often found. Cool?
Cool.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. All right.
Fake magic.
Pardon me?
We want the fake magic.
We want the fake magic. Okay. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. This is my favorite mantra for whenever I go hard and deep, that's really wrong, into any murky Thelemic waters, because often that is my experience. First it is, then it isn't, then it kind of is, and that's very much my experience with exploring this relationship between Thelema and the Yezidi. First it is because Crowley said so. Then you've learned some things about the Yezidi and you're like, nah, they don't really sound like Thelemites at all. And then you get really deep and you go, holy fuck, that's spooky. Okay, and there is some really spooky stuff. It's kind of like, I think about my relationship with the Book of Lies, if you're familiar with that book, where you're reading these like one-page Zen koan type things because you think there's some intimation of some deep spiritual truth, and you go, oh my God, it's a fucking dick joke, right? And then after further meditation and learning and exploration, you go, you know what? That dick joke, totally an intimation of some deep spiritual truth, and round and round and round you go. And that was very, very much my experience looking into this question of the relationship between Thelema and the Yezidi. Aiwaz is not, as I had supposed, a mere formula like many angelic names, but it is the true most ancient name of the god of the Yezidis, and thus returns to the highest antiquity. Our work is therefore historically authentic, the rediscovery of the Sumerian tradition. Aleister Crowley, unpublished introduction of the new commentary to Liber Legis. So this is not my idea. This is Crowley's idea. I'm just trying to figure out whether or not there's anything to it. Okay. I think some background, some historical context is helpful, so I'm going to do a little bit of that. Please bear with me. I know you're all fucking advanced Thelemic scholars, but it helps. So hang on a second, okay? In 1904, Aleister Crowley went to Egypt looking very much like this dude. And keep in mind, this is in the aftermath of the breakup of the Golden Dawn. Crowley's master, MacGregor Mathers, turns out to be, in Crowley's opinion, a fraud, etc. And Crowley is sort of wandering the earth, trying to figure out what to do as the highest adept alive, in his opinion, okay? And I don't think it's any coincidence that he brought to Egypt his wife and the Goetia, okay? That it wasn't like, I packed the boxers, some socks, the Goetia. Why not? You know, what the fuck? I don't think that's any coincidence, okay? And after his usual indulgences and all kinds of weird shit, and camping out in the... Dude, camping out. How many times do you read that and go, holy fuck, okay? I've got a temple in my house, okay? It's a cool temple, but it's a house temple, okay? There's a sewing machine on my small altar, you know. The bathroom's right here with like all my unmentionables hanging there, okay? It's a house temple, but it's my temple. And I have enough training and experience that I can go into that temple and thoroughly freak myself out, okay? Can you imagine how much you could freak yourself out camping in the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid with the Goetia? So no wonder weird shit happened, and of course it did. After all that, a voice made itself known to Crowley and his wife. That voice identified itself as Aiwaz, and claimed to be the minister of Horpar-Krat, the Egyptian god of silence. And that's really important to keep in mind. A voice of the silence, okay? On April 8th, 9th, and 10th, that voice dictated to Aleister Crowley a very weird document that is now the volume of sacred law for this our holy order. And, you know, being possessed of all kinds of occult acumen and Kabbalistic training, Crowley set out to discover the mysteries of said channeled or dictated, however you want to see it, document, particularly the identity of the voice that dictated it. Whatever you think about this experience of Crowley's, it certainly dominated the rest of his spiritual and personal life. Okay, so he took it very, very seriously. Okay, he rendered Aiwaz as Aleph Yod Vav Aleph Samak, added that up to 78, realized that 78 is Mesla, the light descending from Kether, and decided, alrighty then, I got something here. Okay, he decided that because of that, this was a genuine magical link with a real spiritual source. Just an aside, I think it's fucking hilarious. You know, wizards and magicians and shamans and witches have been trying to understand their spiritual experiences for centuries. Crowley's solution to that? Math. Okay, if it adds up, it's okay.
It's
you
not
know,
real math,
it's not real math.
Math major.
It's mathish. Okay, it's Kabbalics. It's definitely Kabbalics, but it's
arithmetic, but it's not math.
Thank you. Truth. I will concede that to you. My point is, I think it says a lot about Crowley's personality that, you know, never mind what impact it has on the world. If the numbers meet, then okay, we're good. Okay. All right, leapfrogging very quickly. Any questions at this point? Thoughts? I get lonely up here, so please. Leapfrogging very quickly from 1904 in Cairo to New York City, 1918. We find Crowley in one of the most unusual chapters of his life. He had a job. Okay, he got a paycheck and everything.
Hey.
Yeah, well, it's the only time in his life he did. Okay, got a paycheck and everything. Crowley actually arrived in New York City on Halloween of 1914 on the Lusitania, the same boat that was sunk that brought the U.S. into World War I. So quite an auspicious arrival. Tobias Churton wrote a whole big book on Crowley's few years in Berlin. You could easily write several volumes on Crowley's years in New York City. This was an incredibly productive time in his life. I think one of the things that sometimes people miss is one of Crowley's real magical skills, his real magical powers. He knew where to be. Okay? If you're a magician at the turn of the century, you're in London. If you're a magician in the early 19-teens, you go to Greenwich Village. Okay? By the 1920s, he was in Paris with Somerset Maugham and these great sculptors and artists, and he knew where to go. He went where the real magic was happening for his generation. Okay. Pardon me? And somebody paid for it. It's in the last 10 years or so, there's been a lot of speculation about whether Crowley was actually employed for the British Secret Service, and they may. Pardon me. Harper and Josh got me really fucking drunk today. So this is going to be funny. No, totally true. Totally true. There's been a lot of speculation that maybe the British Secret Service was paying him off. I don't know. But whatever his vocational pursuits really were, he may have been working for the International magazine. He may not have. But he was working very hard at magic. Okay. At that time, he was 10th degree of the OTO. And this was the time period where he was slowly taking OTO away from what he perceived as purely Thelemic, purely Masonic background, and Thelemizing it in a sense, and really pulling the rug out from Theodore Royce. Okay, this is when Crowley wrote our initiation rituals pretty much as we do them today. This is that whole time period. This is when Crowley was disseminating new rituals to OTO members, where you can read in the margins, if Royce present, omit this part. Okay, because he really was trying to grab it. And by 1921, he had declared himself OHO, and Royce was out, and here we have our OTO. Okay. In addition, he was going through his Magus ordeal. He had declared himself a magus, a true magician with all powers, subsequent to that. And he utilized for his magical name Megatherion, the great beast. Okay, if you know a little bit about Crowley's biography, I don't want to go too much into that, but this was an achievement of a lifetime for him. The great beast of Revelations, the beast 666. Okay, and again, he really wanted to find a tremendous amount of Kabbalistic significance to this Megatherion. And he had a really hard time with it. He couldn't figure it out. How do I get Megatherion to equal something really cute and sexy and make it seem like I'm the beast from Revelations?
So did he add extra letters?
No. Check this shit out. Okay. In February 1918, he was living in Greenwich Village with his then Scarlet Woman, Roddy Minor, and following a typical evening of mescaline and opium and maniacal sex. It was a Saturday night, as one does, okay? Roddy Minor came in contact with a being calling itself the Wizard Amalantra, okay? And the Wizard Amalantra passed Crowley's, entrance exam for wizards and spirits and demons and things like that, and seemed to be providing Crowley with really good information. And to be fair, the Amalantra working is filled with stuff that is still integrated into OTO, particularly the formula of Baphomet. So this was good material. Okay, so snicker if you want about mescaline, but it was good shit. No pun intended. It was good shit. On February 24th, 2018, 1918, I told you, they totally got me fucking wasted today. On February 24th, 1918, Crowley asked Amalantrah, basically, how do I spell 2 megatherion so that's really sexy and equals 666? And Amalantrah's response was less than gratifying. It was really disappointing. It didn't equal 666. It was nonsensical to Crowley. Crowley came away from that particular spiritual phone call very disappointed. Except 2 days later, he proceeded to his offices at the International Magazine to find this letter. This is not the actual letter. This is a transcript from a book. The letter was not addressed to Crowley. It was addressed to Varick. And it praised the International Magazine for the quality of its essays and plays, etc. But here's the funny thing. At the end of the letter, it said, by the way, this is how you spell therion, to equal 666. And the letter was signed by Shmuel Bar Iwaz B. Yaakov D. Sherabad, or Samuel Iwaz Jacobs. I got exposed to the Crowley material very young. I was 11 when I first read Magic and Theory and Practice. This whole little episode was described in Magic and Theory and Practice Appendix 3. I think I probably read that first when I was like 13 or 14. And I had already had enough experience with Crowley to be skeptical. You know, he pulled my leg enough times by then that I was calling bullshit. Because first of all, like Crowley was a maniac fucking Kabbalist, right? You couldn't do this? You know, you got to be kidding me. Furthermore, okay, this information was imparted by a mysterious stranger whose name happened to be Iwaz. So it sounded like bullshit to me, and I declared it thus. And it was not the last time I would be completely wrong. This is Samuel Iwaz Jacobs. He was a real person, and he was fucking interesting as hell. So if you don't mind, may I spend a few minutes talking about Samuel Iwaz Jacobs? Cool? Yeah. Okay, any questions at this point? Comments? Heckling about my height? Anything?
No.
No? Cool?
You fit great against the screen.
Excellent, thank you very much. Samuel Iwaz Jacobs was a really interesting guy. I think he deserves his own biography, and I'm working on that as we speak. He was kind of enigmatic, much like most of the material we're going to cover tonight. We don't even know what his real name is. So far, I have uncovered this many versions of his name. My favorite is the one at the bottom, Bardar Cyrus Urmensi. Bardar simply meaning brother, okay? We don't know much about him, but we're starting to collect some significant information. The reason Jacobs is so important is Jacobs is our connection between Thelema and the Yezidi, and we'll see why in just a minute. So if you don't mind, let's talk about Jacobs a little bit. He was a Syrian. He was born in Urmia, Iran in 1891. Died in 1971, so I can't be his reincarnation. Fuck. You know, I have to stick to Jimi Hendrix or something like that. He was a printer, book designer, blah, blah, blah. I have to change this. This is so, it misses the point so much. Samuel Iwaz Jacobs revolutionized graphic design. If you're interested in graphic design, you owe him a great debt. If you're interested in graphic novels, for example, you owe him a great debt. He is the father of the modernist movement. Pardon me?
Comic books?
Yeah. He is the father of the modernist movement in graphic design. It's hard to think about this today when we have computers and, you know, all this software and, you know, I mean, my daughter can make shit like this in about 20 minutes on her computer. But back then, if you wanted to print something, you had to have metal type, and you put it in a wooden frame and placed it in a printing press, and, you know, there was a roller with ink, and you stuck a piece of paper in, and boom, you had an impression, right? And if you didn't have, let's say, Greek, you had to buy it. And if nobody was selling it, you had to make it, okay? And Samuel Iwaz Jacobs made all this shit, okay? He was a genius. He was a brilliant artist. He's mostly known for his work with E. E. Cummings. This is a plate he made for one of E. E. Cummings' books. And E. E. Cummings also revolutionized literature. E. E. Cummings is one of the fathers of modernist poetry. And one of the things about Cummings is it wasn't just his use of language. It was the way the words looked on the page. No one had ever seen anything like that before. His use of space, okay? And in 1931, Time magazine ran an article about E. E. Cummings and correctly identified Samuel Iwaz Jacobs, not as Cummings' typesetter or printer or what have you, but as Cummings' creative collaborator, okay? Cummings and Jacobs were a team, okay? And prior to them, you never really saw stuff like this. This was the first time. And to make something like this out of metal type was phenomenally difficult, okay? And Jacobs did that for Cummings. There's these wonderful stories. If you get the collected letters of E. E. Cummings, they're phenomenally expensive, but you can buy them. There's all these letters between Cummings and his relatives, especially his aunt. And he talks about Jacobs a lot. He doesn't often name him, but it's obvious who he's talking about. And Cummings was a bit of a, you know, he had a little bit of a sense of humor. He was a little prankster, and Jacobs was a little crabby, okay? So there's these beautiful stories. My favorite story, Cummings telling his aunt, and I'm going to try to do Cummings' voice. There are recordings of Cummings' voice, so I'm not trying to be offensive. He had this very kind of fey, affected, bohemian voice. He'd say things like, Jacobs, I would like this poem to look like a horse. And, you know, Jacobs kind of grumbling away, you gotta be fucking kidding me, you know, and then coming back the next day with this. Okay? So Jacobs was an absolute genius of graphic design. He later went on to found his own book company called Golden Eagle Press, was in business for about 20 years in Mount Vernon, New York. Every year, the American Institute of Graphic Arts publishes a list of the 50 best books of the year. These are new books, not old books. 50 best new books of the year. And it's not the best books in terms of literary style. They're the best books in terms of design and, you know, sort of the art of making a book, okay? And in the 20 years that Jacobs was in business, 12 of his books were at the top of the list of the 50 best books of the year. I've begun collecting Samuel Iwaz Jacobs books. They're not all that expensive because he's not that well known. They're gorgeous. I used to bring them for these lectures, but something weird happened, so I leave them at home now. They're the most beautiful books you've ever seen. You want to put them on your pillow. You want to do things to these books that shouldn't be done. You know, they're beautiful. They're so fucking beautiful. Yeah, they're true bibliophile. Okay. In 2003, Roger Remington, a professor at the Rochester Institute of Technology, wrote the very first textbook on modernism in graphic design. And there's a whole section on Samuel Iwaz Jacobs. And he correctly identifies Jacobs as the father of modern graphic design, okay? So before Jacobs, comic books were not possible, okay? There's more. Jacobs was a poet. He was a scholar of metaphysical verse, and he was an advocate for Middle Eastern immigrants. This was the time when the Ottoman Empire had collapsed, and lots of Middle Eastern people from Turkey, Iran, Iraq, etc., were trying to get into the United States and were having a very difficult time. He wrote pamphlets for them. He held community meetings for them. He wrote newsletters. He was a very strong advocate for Middle Eastern immigrants. There is a sort of, it's more powerful today than ever, but there's this sort of Middle Eastern identity movement, very strongly with Assyrians and Persians, where they've tried to start to distance themselves from their more recent history. And this goes all the way back to the early 1900s, where people from Iran and Iraq said, wait a minute, we were here before Islam. We have a richer history than that. We have a lot to offer the world. When Europe was in the Dark Ages, we had universities in Baghdad and shit, okay? And so there's this whole movement of not necessarily, criticizing Islam, but saying, well, look, that's part of who we are, but there's much more to us than that, okay? Naum Faik is the undisputed father of the modern Assyrian and Persian identity movement. Samuel Iwaz Jacobs was Naum Faik's secretary and second in command, basically, of the Assyrian and Persian identity movement. Naum Faik actually has a holiday. Assyrians especially celebrate Naum Faik Day. And Samuel Iwaz Jacobs was like this close to being that guy. Okay? So very important in terms of their ethnic identity. He was a student of world religions and an admirer of Aleister Crowley. Jacobs was a real Thelemite and seemed to have been so until he died. I think it's worth taking a look at some things he said. Don't try to read this. Follow no one. Only you can lead yourself. Be open-minded and ready to reject every extraneous influence. Use your own. Talk is cheap. Let others talk. Pay no attention to them or to me. Shun them and me with your self-discipline. Value your freedom from the shackles of the straitjacket. A rose is a rose regardless of its position on the bush. Approach your line of activity as an individual. Be independent. There is but one law to obey, the law of freedom. And obedience to that law is liberty. God, that sounds familiar, right? He wrote that in 1951. Okay? So Jacobs was a real Thelemite who had real Thelemic ideas. There is some circumstantial evidence. This is where I'm going to go a little bit outside of good scholarship, but there is some circumstantial evidence that Crowley regarded Jacobs as a spiritual source in some way, and maybe in a very significant way. For example, in the Magical and Philosophical Commentaries on the Book of the Law, written in 1919, very soon after Crowley met Jacobs, Crowley said, I must here mention that the brother, note the capitalization on the word brother, the brother mentioned in connection with the wizard Amalantra, etc., Samuel Bar Iwaz, that's one of the very few times Crowley actually mentions his name, identifies them meaning Nuit and Hadit, with Anu and Adad, the supreme mother and father deities of the Sumerians. Taken in connection with the Iwaz identification, this is very startling indeed. So this says two things, or at least suggests two things. One, that Crowley might have regarded Jacobs as a spiritual brother, and perhaps as a brother of the AA. And two, Crowley was taking some direction from Jacobs. Okay? It gets better. We good? You all right? Feeling okay? Drink more wine. The drunker you are, the smarter I sound. Okay? I now incline to believe that Iwaz is not only the god or demon or devil once held holy in Sumer, and mine own holy guardian angel, but also a man as I am, insofar as he uses a human body to make his magical link with mankind whom he loves. And that he is thus an ipsissimus and head of the AA. I have been permitted to see him in recent years in a variety of physical appearances. Okay? All right, so that's kind of a cute little suggestion, maybe.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
To the repetition of, what's the guy's name?
Jacobs?
Jacob. Yeah.
What about, I'm sorry, what's the question?
Repeat his voice.
Repeat Jacob's voice?
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Oh,
I wish I knew.
no, you said fairly vague.
No, that was E.E. Cummings.
Oh.
Yeah, I've never heard Jacob's voice. I wish. If you're super nerdy like me, you read the imprimatur on the AA publications. One of the things I love about the OTO is there's almost always somebody as nerdy or more nerdy than I am and knows more about this kind of shit than I do. Yeah. Every AA publication includes this imprimatur. If you read the Book of Thoth, there's the imprimatur. The imprimatur includes all of the offices held by people in the AA, okay? And it's always understood that these are real people Okay? In fact, sometimes Crowley gave people honorary degrees, even though they did not have that spiritual degree, just so they could be an officer of the AA. Now, why he did that, that's another lecture, okay? But check this shit out, okay? When Crowley published the Equinox, Volume 1, numbers 1 through 10, there was no Ipsissimus. It ended with Magus 92666, obviously referring to Crowley. When Crowley published Volume 3, number 1 of the Equinox, the Blue Equinox, in 1918, shortly after meeting Samuel Iwaz Jacobs, all of a sudden, there's an Ipsissimus identified by the number 93. I'm not the first one to speculate that Crowley might have believed that Samuel Iwaz Jacobs was his superior in the AA and an Ipsissimus. Okay? It wouldn't be the first person Crowley identified as an AA superior. There's Oscar Eckenstein, George Cecil Jones, Blavatsky, etc. So it's not that crazy, okay? But it might have been Jacobs. Gets better, all right? You know, Crowley hardly ever wrote Jacob's name. And if you've been a student of Crowley's for a while, you learn that if Crowley constantly repeats something, it might be important. But if he says something really weird and enigmatic like once and then never says it again, that's real fucking important, okay? That's what you should be spending your attention with. And that may be true for Jacobs.
So what book is that you're referring
The Equinox, Volume 3, number 1, the Blue Equinox, 1918. And that's the first time Crowley identifies an Ipsissimus of the AA. And keep in mind, Crowley did not take his Ipsissimus grade until the 20s. So Crowley did not claim to be an Ipsissimus when this book was published. Somebody else was an Ipsissimus. Could have been Jacobs, okay? So Crowley hardly ever mentioned Jacobs in his published work, but he never stopped talking about him. In fact, in a letter to Gerald York dated 1945, Crowley may be suggesting not only that Jacobs was an Ipsissimus, but Jacobs was Iwaz, the voice that dictated the Book of the Law. He says, surely Equinox of the Gods covers your query re Iwaz as fully as possible. The only point undetermined is whether he is a discarnate being or, as seems possible after the Samuel Iwaz Jacobs incident, a human being, presumably a Syrian of that name. Can I get a holy shit?
Holy shit!
Thank you. Bring it in. Bring it in. All right. So, Jacobs may have been somebody that Crowley regarded as his spiritual mentor. Why is this important? Well, evidently, and I haven't seen the letter to prove this, but I know it exists, it was Jacobs who told Crowley, this is the correct way of spelling Iwaz, to equal 93. So when you do Liber Reguli, whenever you see Iwaz spelled A-I-W-A-Z equals 93, that's not Crowley's work. That's Jacobs. Jacobs gave us that. Evidently, it was Jacobs who told Crowley that Iwaz is the secret name of the god of the Yezidi. And thus we come to the topic of our meeting here tonight. Background stuff good?
So far?
Yeah? Yeah? Should I keep it? It's interesting shit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take a drink. Y'all talk amongst yourselves.
Water? Alright, he's drinking water.
May I have more water, please?
You can have all the water.
You did. Totally got. I'm wasted.
He's
I'm so fucking wasted. Okay, so who are these Yezidi people? What, if anything, do they have to do with Thelema, and is Iwaz the secret name of their god? Well, the Yezidi people have been a very enigmatic and mysterious people for hundreds of years. There's nothing new about that. And they have been the subject of tremendous persecution. And from here on, I'll point out some things I think are cool, but feel free to spot the similarities, because we're going to find some stuff that's really spooky, some stuff that really sounds an awful lot like stuff that we do. they've been persecuted for centuries, not only by Muslims, but by other people too. In 2014, about 5,000 Yazidis were slaughtered by machine gun fire. So much so that they retreated to the Sinjar Mountains. This is an actual picture of them retreating into the mountains to find cover. Eventually, Germany, the UK, the US, the United Arab Emirates, I think Turkey as well, sent some military aid in, got some help, got those people out of there. But it's far from over. Hundreds, possibly thousands of women were kidnapped and sold into sexual slavery, and they're still there. In fact, in July of this year, Farida Khalaf wrote a book, first book ever published by a Yazidi person, called The Girl Who Escaped ISIS. As a teenager, she was kidnapped and sold into sexual slavery and escaped, and she wrote a memoir about it. It's very difficult reading, but I highly, highly recommend it. So they've been awfully persecuted for many, many centuries, okay? Why? Why? Well, that's a very complicated question. So let's get to know a little bit about them and see if we can answer that. We won't come up with an answer that we find justifiable, but we'll come up with a rationale. The very vast majority, thank you, of Yazidi people live in northern Iraq, in Nineveh province, in the Lalish Valley, right here. And they consider Lalish their spiritual homeland. Very difficult for them to be separated from their spiritual homeland. Most of their sacraments can only be performed at Lalish. Here's an interesting point. If you look about 200 miles northeast of Lalish, that's Urmia. That's where Samuel Elias Jacobs grew up, okay? And Urmia plays very prominently in the history of contact between Yazidi and non-Yazidi people. So Jacobs, growing up in Urmia, may have had rich contact with Yazidi people. He might have known what he was talking about, okay? Just an aside. This is a picture of Lalish, and what you're seeing here, over here is the shrine of Sheikh Adi, or Sheikh Adi, very important person in their spiritual history. And then these are all a complex of buildings used for different ceremonial purposes. People can sleep there. They, when they come there for, they go there for festivals and things like that. What's interesting about Lalish is all of this stuff is built on top of underground caverns. And those caverns, the river Zemzem runs through them. And they believe that the river Zemzem is the source of all creation. And that's where they perform most of their sacraments. And for centuries, people have observed them. Well, these Yazidi people do all these things up here, but then they disappear underground, and what the hell are they doing down there? So that's the stuff of legend, okay? If you can characterize the Yazidi people in terms of their relationships with their neighbors, they're often seen as outsiders, others, strangers. They don't fit in. Part of that is that they look different, okay? They dress differently. Women often tattoo their hands and faces. So far from wearing a veil, these women are out there, and we'll talk a little bit about sexuality among women in the Yazidi. Blonde hair, red hair, blue eyes, very common among the Yazidi. So in a highly Arabic part of the world, they look different. If you follow me on Facebook, because I am the center of the universe, okay? If you follow me on Facebook, you may have noticed that I whine a little bit less lately, because I put her picture on my desktop at work. And every time I think I'm having a bad day, this Yazidi girl looks at me and goes, "Tell me how fucking bad your day was, dude." Okay? This was a picture taken in Sinjar in 2014. This little girl and her family were fleeing from ISIS or Daesh or whatever the fuck they call themselves now. Okay. They have this reputation for strange origins. Somebody was asking me earlier about whether or not they're Kurds. And if you read, they're not. If you read academic, yeah, they're not Kurds at all. If you read academic journals today, they'll refer to them as Kurds. They're definitely not Kurds. That's convenience, because Kurdish people enjoy a level of freedom in that region that nobody else does. So they were like, hey, can we please be Kurds for a little while as long as the Ba'athist regime is here and, you know, enjoy this Kurdistan, this Kurdish free zone, etc. There are serious mainstream academics who believe that the Yazidi people do not originate from this part of the world. They believe they originate from somewhere in central Afghanistan, migrated down into northern India, and I shit you not, they believe that they started the Vedic traditions in India. They gave India religion and then migrated into Iraq. There's very little evidence to really support that, but it's a really sexy idea, right? It's mostly predicated on the fact that there are Sanskrit words only found in the Rig Veda that are identical to Yazidi words. That's pretty thin, but it's pretty cool, okay? The Yazidi people would, at this point, have never consented to any kind of DNA studies or anything like that. They're very insular people. They beg to differ. They believe that they are from that part of the world. They believe that they are the first people, descendants of Seth, the third son of Adam, and not born of woman. And that's going to become important to us a little bit later on. They believe that they are a race set apart from everyone else. And that is why they're so insular. Endogamy is not just xenophobia for them. It's an article of faith of their religion. You cannot marry into the Yazidi. You cannot convert to the Yazidi. Yazidi people can't marry out. You are born a Yazidi, and that is all. And they're not interested in sharing their cosmology or mystical beliefs or anything else with anybody. They don't care about us. They are a race set apart. And there are religious reasons for that that we'll cover in a few minutes. Good? Questions, comments, answers? Yes?
Okay, well, I also want to mention to you about the Kurdish connection.
Mhm.
And I got it from the New York Times magazine that was published last month, talking about the Northeast. And he was saying that Peshmerga did not rescue the Yazidis, and they feel so guilty about that. What is the point?
Well, maybe they do, but you know, the thing is, so in the late 1800s, the Ottoman Empire was falling apart. And they were desperate to conscript anyone they could into their military. And there was a legal rationale to conscript Kurds. There was no legal rationale to conscript Yazidi. So, as is often the case with bureaucracies, with the stroke of a pen, they made the Yazidi people Kurds so they can conscript them into the army. The Kurds the Yazidi begged to differ, and they created a document, an official objection to them being created Kurds, and they said, we are not Kurds, okay? In 1992, the Kurdish Free Zone was created in Iraq, and this was a place where people could escape Saddam Hussein and the Ba'athist regime. And it was an oasis in an area where evil was being perpetrated. And the Yazidi went, hey, remember when we were Kurds? Can we do that again? You know, for safety. But they're not Kurds. In fact, if you look at their history over centuries, the Kurdish people have been among their most aggressive abusers. So they're not Kurds, okay? But hey, who could blame them for saying, hey, we're fucking Kurds, man. If that works for you, just leave us alone, kind of thing.
They kind of remind me of a lot of the Druids too.
Okay, please.
I mean, just with the religion and the secrets and not being able to convert into it. And
Yeah, they keep
all
it to
that, it's all
themselves.
the same as the Druids too.
Yes, they keep it to themselves very much in the same way. They are not a people of the book, and this is really big in that part of the world. In the Middle East, Mesopotamia, the Levant region, having a written scripture is status. And small groups of people who have no written scripture evidently are not deserving of basic human rights and dignity. They don't get it because they don't have a written scripture, okay? So, some of the common ground some of these people find in this area is through the Quran, the Torah, the Bible. These things draw on common cultural currency. And if you're part of that, maybe you're okay, we won't kill you. If you're not part of that, you don't deserve any rights at all, okay? This brings us to one of the biggest controversies among the Yazidi. So remember, first there is a mountain. Well, first there is a scripture. Then there is no scripture. Then there is, okay? There are two infamous Yazidi texts, the Black Book and the Book of Revelation. These were first published in 1895 by E.G. Browne. They were later popularized by Asiya Joseph in his book, Devil Worship, the Sacred Books and Traditions of the Yazidi. Doesn't that sound like a Geraldo Rivera special or something? You know? So a lot of people bought that shit. When this came out, academics immediately dismissed it as a hoax, okay? Because it purported to be ancient Yazidi texts, but it was filled with 19th century language, okay? So it was clearly not ancient stuff. However, after academics pronounced this a hoax, people who spent time with the Yazidi said, hang on a second, this is kind of ringing true. This sounds an awful lot like what the Yazidi people tell us. So in a sense, it's a hoax that was not a hoax. It reminds me a lot of more recent occult history. Back in the 70s, very mercurial and funny character calling himself Simon was hanging around bookshops in New York City, and he seemed to pluck the dreaded Necronomicon from the ether. And learned cultists all over the world said, ha 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 ha, there's no such thing as the Necronomicon. Simon's a really funny, cool guy, and this is really hilarious. The thing I love about magicians is after they said that, they were like, hang on, let's try it. See if it works. And it did, okay? Some of the weirdest shit that has ever happened in the OTO history, I think the early 80s to late 80s are infamous in OTO for being crazy times. I was there as a child. The craziest shit I ever saw was competent magicians using spell work from the Necronomicon. It worked somehow. It might have been Poke Runyon who first pointed out, yeah, well, okay, you can save that. You can save that for later. He might have been the first one to point out that Simon did not make this shit up. What Simon did is he took real Babylonian demonology and used his knowledge of how ritual works and collated it and organized it into a workable form. And no wonder weird shit happened, okay? So it was a hoax, but it was a hoax that worked. And I love that about magicians, you know. I was a student of Kenneth Grant's for a long time. And Kenneth was really into this, Lovecraftian stuff and Necronomicon stuff. And I had a hard time with that as a kid. And I'm like, Ken, come on, this is just a book some dude made up. It was the best letter I ever got from Kenneth Grant. It was one sentence, and it said, the Bible, the Zohar, the Sefer Yetzirah, on and on and on, and everything else that you're into, it's all made up, okay? It's what you do with it, okay? So this was a hoax, but it was a hoax that worked. Similar thing for the Yazidi people. A little digging revealed that these books were probably written by Jeremiah Shamir sometime around 1865. If you've ever seen an Indiana Jones type movie, there's always the shady antiques dealer, and he will sell you something that he claims is like a Sumerian exorcism that turns out to be like Coptic porn, okay? That was Shamir, okay? He'll sell you that, but he's got the real Holy Grail like under the cash register. That was Shamir, okay? And Shamir fooled a lot of people. He sold stuff to Wallace Budge. He sold stuff to very famous Egyptologists, etc. But he also knew what he was talking about. Turns out Shamir was an orphan who was raised in a Presbyterian monastery in Urmia, okay, where Samuel Iwaz Jacobs grew up, and where they had a long history of contact between that monastery and Yazidi people. So there were all these little snippets of Yazidi lore. Went to the Yazidi thing, Yazidi New Year, this is what they did. Yazidi person told me this, etc. And rather than just publishing that as basic academic stuff, Shamir wanted to make it sound more sexy, so he said, these are ancient documents, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they're not ancient documents. The Yazidi never wrote them. The Yazidi never used them. They weren't aware of their publication, but it kind of really does fit. It really does capture the Yazidi cosmology. So it's a hoax, it's not a hoax, yes?
What year was 1865?
1865. That's my best guess is when Shamir wrote this stuff. Okay. In fact, the Yazidi people are an entirely oral people. They have no written scripture, and there is a spiritual, it's sort of a sin for them to write anything down. Okay, so that's prohibited by them. They pass on their traditions through songs. They call qawwals. Okay, so you go and you listen to these professional qawwali singers who will sing the ancient songs to you, and you hear that. That's how they pass on their tradition. But they are not a people of the book.
What language do they speak?
Kurmanji. Yeah, and they're not the only people that speak Kurmanji, but it's a pretty limited language, and they have their own dialect of it, which will become interesting in a minute. They are a highly syncretic religion. I'm so fucking sick of hearing that. What religion is not syncretic? I still haven't thought of one. They're all syncretic. Much like Thelema, they're a syncretic religion. I would, and I listed a few. Oh, they're like the Zoroastrians, they're like Sufis, they're like the Ali Haq, they're like the Mandeans. There's this weird kind of schizoid thing in academic circles where they want to say they're all this stuff, but they also want to say, but they are the genuine survival of the ancient whatever, okay? It's ridiculous, okay? One of the really popular ones is to call them Zoroastrians. So the Yezidi have a festival that is very, very similar to a Zoroastrian festival, okay? So these researchers go in and they go, aha, look, they're doing the Zoroastrian festival. They're Zoroastrians. We're done. Let's have coffee. That's it, okay? That's insane, okay? It's like saying, I don't know, like modern Christians are a genuine survival of ancient Celtic religions because Christian kids put fucking masks on for Halloween. You know, it's ridiculous. It's on the surface, absolutely ridiculous. Just because they have something in common with another group, that doesn't mean that's who they are. I would really like to de-emphasize the syncretism. And I like to do that for Thelema, too. I've actually heard people describe Thelema as Western Hinduism. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. If nothing else, Thelema is new. That's the whole point of it. It might draw on rich soil, but it's new. It's its own thing. That's the whole point. Same is true for the Yezidi people. They may have been influenced by their neighbors. They may have influenced their neighbors. How the fuck do I know? Maybe that Zoroastrian festival, maybe the Yezidi people taught the Zoroastrians that. I don't know. There's no data to make that decision, okay? The point is they're their own thing, okay? So don't reduce them to their common denominators with other people. And the truth is, if you look at their similarities to other religious groups, the similarities are interesting, but the differences are much, much more significant. So they're their own thing. They are a highly individual religion. And the thing that they prize most is individual gnosis, okay? That prayer is a dialogue between an individual and spirit. Now, they have holy orders, they have religious professionals, sheikhs, they pronounce it shah, and that's going to become important to us. Pirs, fakirs, qawwalis are the people who sing their hymns, murids, etc. This reminds me a lot of OTO, okay? I have a bishop, okay? My bishop will tell me, Ron, you can't perform mass on roller skates, okay? But he won't tell me what to think. Okay, he won't tell me how to interpret the Mass. He won't tell me how to interpret the book of the law. They'll just tell me, leave your fucking skates at home. Okay? It's very similar in the Yazidi people. They'll tell them what kinds of things you can get away with for public issues, but they won't tell them what to believe, because for the Yazidi people, individual dialogue with spirit is the most important thing. So you get different flavors of Yazidism depending on what village you're in, what family you're talking to, etc. Again, very much like Thelema. My first real magical teacher was a Thelemite, in the sense that she knew everything about Crowley and she knew everything about this stuff. But her real spiritual path was that she was a priestess of Oshun. So she was a voodoo Thelemite. You find stuff like that all the time in Thelema. People have these different flavors of it because nobody's going to tell you what to believe or how to do what you do. And the same is very, very much true for the Yezidi. It's a highly flexible religion. In fact, one of the Kuwals states, and I'll quote, "The scriptures of strangers are acceptable to me." And that's their God speaking to them. Reminds me very much of the Book of the Law. All prophets are true. I don't remember the rest of the quote because I'm drunk. Save that they understand little, or some shit like that. You get it, okay? So again, very much, Yazidism is very happy to say, well, here's who we are, but if you want to go, be kind of Muslimish or kind of Christianish or kind of Gnosticish, that's cool. There's no problem with that. They can incorporate that into what they do. Okay. Questions, comments? Feel the need to touch base with you? I'm phone home.
Is there, have you found any connection?
Alcohol. Okay, people after my own heart. Okay. Right? Let the rituals be rightly performed with joy and beauty. They take that real seriously. So if you go to like a Yazidi New Year, you'll see men sitting on top of huts, drunk out of their minds, shooting guns into the air and praying. My kind of people. Fucking cool. And during the festivals, they do the kawals, they do the songs. They have sacraments, the most important sacrament being baptism, but there are others. I used to be mad at the internet, but I'm really not anymore because I found this. My whole life, I never thought I would see a real picture of a Yazidi baptism. This came out, I think, 2 years ago. And this is taking place in Lalish, underneath those buildings, in the underground caverns. This is a real Yazidi baptism happening. Fucking cool. Love that. Okay. They have all kinds of taboos and customs. Again, there's a lot. I'm not going to go through that. Most of them have to do with purity, preserving purity, and most of that has to do with the purity of the 4 elements. And they're the same 4 elements that we do: fire, water, air, and earth. So for example, a Yazidi is not allowed to blow out a candle. That's too aggressive to fire. They have to put it out with their fingers. Okay? Yazidi people have to say a prayer before drinking a glass of water. If a Yazidi person is walking along a path and sees stones strewn about the path, that's disrespectful to stones. They are required to stop and arrange the stones in a little dome off the side of the path. So if you see pictures from Lalish, you see these paths with all these little domes arranged, all little stone domes all over the path. That's their way of respecting the 4 elements. Okay. Pardon me? It could be, but I don't know. I mean, I do shit like that too, I don't arrange stones in a path, but I do other things. I'm not going to judge.
Who's to say that being OCD isn't evolutionarily dangerous?
Yeah, I don't, it could be. Let's not get bogged down in that, but it could be a little OCD, but who are we to judge? Okay, but what they are really known for, let's get to the juicy shit, is their reverence for the peacock deity. And this is what gets them in trouble with their neighbors. If you are interested in peacock imagery in Thelema, you will have no problem finding it. I would recommend, for example, Liber 418. Probably, maybe second only to the Book of the Law in importance in Thelemic cosmology. And there is an entire aether called the Vision of the Universal Peacock. really important. In Crowley's prose poem, Aha, he identifies the peacock as representing Atma Darshana. In 777, Crowley attributes the peacock in some ways to Keter and in other ways to Samek, the path leading through the middle pillar to Tifereth. Okay? There's a tremendous amount of stuff on Thelemic alchemy and the peacock imagery. I would refer you to the work of J. Daniel Gunther for that. His book, Initiation in the Aeon of the Child, includes a brief but very good overview of peacock imagery and alchemy. And if you're interested in Thelemic Tantra and peacock imagery, I would refer you to the works of Kenneth Grant. I know it's become chic to diss Kenneth. You do so at your own peril. Kenneth Grant's work is brilliant. If you're looking for scholarship, you will not find it. If you are looking for magic, you will find it in abundance. So I would read that stuff, especially his early work. Aleister Crowley and the Hidden God, one of the best books I've ever read in my life. Okay. So if you're interested in the peacock in Thelema, those are some things to look at. In this part of the world, the peacock has a weird reputation. They seem to acknowledge the otherworldly beauty of a peacock. Who doesn't love a peacock? I mean, they're gorgeous. But they're assholes, okay? Pardon me?
You're in the Monticello.
One more time?
Monticello.
Monticello, what about it?
Peacocks all over the place.
All over the place?
Amazing.
Well, who else has experience with peacocks? Quite, wow, I've never seen that many hands. They're assholes, okay? They're so mean. I was once chased around the Toronto Zoo for about 15 minutes by a peacock. If I didn't have a gigantic demon dog, I would get a fucking guard peacock because those things are really scary. So, and they when they're mad, they have this absolutely horrific shriek, okay? So one second. So you get this kind of beauty that will hurt you. It's almost like the modern vampire archetype. These beautiful, sexy creatures who will kill you and suck your blood. Yes?
No, you covered it.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry, didn't mean to.
No, it's great.
Okay. So, as a consequence, in that part of the world, peacock deities are associated with demons. And this is where the Yezidi people get their reputation as devil worshippers. And there are several specific entities, Azazel, Shaitan, Satan, Iblis, etc., that are associated with this peacock image and evil. Okay. So, like Thelema, the Yezidi people are often regarded as devil worshippers. And like Thelema, it's not true, but it's kind of true, okay? And we'll talk about that. By the way, if you're uncomfortable with satanic imagery in Thelema, I recommend getting over it. I also recommend checking out the works of my buddy Joshua Sharp, who did a really brilliant lecture that was serialized over The Speech and the Silence, I think like 3 or 4 episodes, called The Summer of Satan. And it's brilliant, beautiful stuff. When I came into Thelema as a young child, I came from a very Catholic background. So Christian imagery was really, I was really uncomfortable with it. And I had to get over that because Christian imagery is abundant in Thelema. If you haven't seen it yet, you're not looking. And it's there for that reason. If it rubs you wrong, go into it and figure that out, okay? But anyone who says that Thelema isn't Christian doesn't know what they're talking about, and anyone who says Thelema isn't satanic also doesn't know what they're talking about. All right, so what do these Yezidi people actually believe? That's difficult because they disagree with each other. Okay, much like Thelemites. There's this old saying, you ask 2 Thelemites the same question, you get at least 5 different opinions, okay? And that's true. That's true of the Yezidi people too. There's also a lot of evidence that over the years, contact between Yazidis and researchers, Yezidi people have deliberately falsified information to get people to leave them alone. There's also this very interesting phenomenon that sociologists call feedback, that when you get this group of people that are, for the most part, pretty insular, haven't had a lot of contact with the outside, and then researchers start to study them and write stuff about them, they start to read the stuff that was written about them. And they go, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's do that. There's this great story by a sociologist from Germany. He was interviewing a family in Iraq, Yezidi family, and they're telling him all this stuff about their beliefs, and he's like, the hair on the back of my neck is sticking up. And I went in the kitchen for a glass of water, and there was my book sitting on their table. They had been reading his book and telling him the same shit he speculated about, okay? So there's that too, okay? So what do they believe? Well, they believe in one secret and ineffable Lord. They really do, just like us, okay? They believe in one God who cannot be understood in any way, okay? Anything you say about this God is false by definition because you're saying it, okay? One of their kawals says, God is oceans deep. No one reaches his shores, okay? In a sense, like first there is a mountain, well, first there is a monotheism, then there is no monotheism, then there is. Because they believe in one secret and ineffable God, they often use the word Huadi, which is just a very generic word in that part of the world for a God. Except this God is triune and manifests in three persons. Azazel, who is called Melech Taus. Melech Taus is not the name of their God, it's a title, and we'll talk about that in a minute. His name is Azazel, okay? Sultan Yazid, who is represented as a child with a crowned and conquering child, okay? And Sheikh or Shah Adi, who is a real person in history. For a long time, researchers thought Sheikh Adi was the founder of the Yezidi religion. He definitely was not. There was a Yezidi religion long before Shah Adi. They just thought he was real fucking cool. Okay. This one God who is actually three gods, whatever, lots of triune gods in that area, created the universe as a white pearl. And from that white pearl emerged 7 angels. And these are the heptad of angels of the Yezidi faith. They are Azazel, Jabriel, Michael, Shamash, Toriel, Israfel, and Dadiel. And if these sound familiar, that's because they are. If you read the Yezidi descriptions of these angels, they're exactly what you think they would be. And you could very easily graph these on the tree of life. Binah, Hesed, Geburah, Tifereth, etc. It's the same thing. Except these are not 7 angels. They are the one ineffable God. So we have this sort of emanationist religion, okay? As we say in EGC, per nomen septem in uno arorito, 1 in 7, the one God, okay? In addition to these 7 angels that aren't angels but the one ineffable God, it's a fucking religion. Don't try to make sense out of it, dude. There are jinns, spirits, god men, heroes, all kinds of stuff like that. So, is it monotheistic? It's monotheistic the way Catholicism is monotheistic, meaning it's not, okay? So, at the same time, they have a very nuanced understanding of this idea that, okay, there's all these things, but all these things really are just approximations to the one ineffable God that actually cannot be described, okay? We share some heroes in common with them, by the way. Nasruddin, does anybody know the Nasruddin stories? Awesome shit. Nasruddin is a big hero for the Yezidi people. Mansur al-Hallaj, big hero for the Yezidi people. The Yezidi have some very specific oral scriptures about this emanationist philosophy. One of my favorites is called the Kawal of the Broken One. And in that Kawal it says, I give praise to the one who is many. So they're not unaware of this idea. It's not just the the highly educated mystics who understand that all of these things are actually just emanations of the one ineffable God. They all agree on that. That's an article of faith for them. This one ineffable God that is 3 gods and 7 gods at the same time, whatever, created human beings. And after he created human beings, Adam and Eve, just like the Judeo-Christian Islamic Adam and Eve, the first thing he did is he instructed the 7 angels who are also himself. Like I said, don't fucking make sense out of it. It's religion. He instructed the 7 angels that are also himself to bow before Adam. And Azazel refused. Azazel said, I will bow to none but the one true ineffable God. Now this is not, they're not the only people who have this story. This is not, specific to the Yezidi people. Lots of people in that region have this story of the fallen angel. The angel who refused to obey God, who through his hubris and lack of humility is cast down from heaven. So, you have the Islamic Iblis, the Judeo-Christian Satan, the Greco-Romano Lucifer, this archetype of the fallen angel. For most cultures, the refusal of this angel to bow before Adam is the beginning of evil. Refusal to obey God is the beginning of evil. For the Yezidi, the refusal to obey is the beginning of spirituality. And that's the difference. Okay? They don't see Azazel as evil. They see Azazel as good. So let's take a second and talk a little bit about Azazel, shall we?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah? You guys still with me?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Any questions at this point?
EL ending, is a deity like it is in Hebrew?
Pardon me?
EL ending.
Yes, let's talk about that, shall we?
Is that a designation of...
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay.
All right? The earliest, don't read this, the earliest known literary reference to Azazel is from Leviticus, and this was probably written sometime around 800 BCE. And this is the old story of the scapegoat. Okay, so the Hebrew people would take 2 goats, one would be sacrificed to Yahweh, the other one would take all the sins of the Hebrew people and be set free to go die a horrible death in the desert. Okay, and theologians have debated for centuries about what that really means. Okay, was this scapegoat Azazel, or was the goat for Azazel? Was Azazel a cosmic being, a god of the desert, in conflict with Yahweh, who needed to be appeased? And to this day, they do not agree on that. Part of the problem comes from the fact that back then, when you wrote Hebrew, there weren't a lot of spaces. So you didn't really know where one word stopped and another word began. So if you render Azazel like this, it could mean Azel, the goat that escapes. All right? Or it could mean Azel, or Azazel, which would translate to the impudent God. And to this day, theologians cannot decide what was going on. We don't know what the people who wrote Leviticus really meant. What we do know is that by about 250 BCE, there were Hebrew people who believed that Azazel was a cosmic deity in conflict with Yahweh. Okay, and this comes from the apocalyptic literature in Hebrew thought. The most significant piece would be 1 Enoch. If you haven't read 1 Enoch, read it. It's real juicy stuff. This is where we get all those things about angels coming down from heaven, having sex with women, and producing the Nephilim. So if you are an Ancient Aliens fan, you have to read 1 Enoch, because evidently that's where the aliens come in. Okay. Nephilim. Okay. If you haven't read 1 Enoch, I urge you to do that. This is the story of Azazel, and it's identified as Azazel, says to his angelic brethren, hey guys, check that shit out. Let's go down there and get busy. Okay, and they do. They come down to earth and they have sex with women. But they don't just have sex with women. They also reveal to women the secrets of heaven. And you can read First Enoch, which describes the secrets of heaven that these angels reveal. And there's lots of them. And, you know, they're different. But you could probably categorize most of them into two separate categories: swords and eyeliner. Okay? The angels come down from heaven, have sex with women, and teach them how to kill people and how to look hot. That's what they do. Okay? If you think about it from a Thelemic perspective, fine. Yeah, right? Right? Inanna, the goddess of war and sex. If you want to look for references to sex and violence or sex and power in Thelema, you won't have any problems finding it. Look at the Tower card in the tarot. It's a very violent, very sexy card. What did the Tower card used to be called? Does anybody know?
The house of God.
The House of God. The mysteries of the House of God, the secrets of heaven. Okay, so this is really worked into our Thelemic cosmology. Okay.
Wasn't Isis the lady of the house?
Pardon me?
Isis was the lady of the house.
Yes.
The end of Isis corresponds with God.
Yes. No, Isis. Infinite space and the infinite stars thereof. Isis. Okay. So if you want to find references to this kind of stuff, to the idea of spirits or angels copulating with humans and teaching them the secrets of heaven, that's kind of what this whole fucking thing's about, isn't it? Okay? And that's where we get this. Now, for most cultures, this idea of angels coming down, revealing the secrets of heaven, and having sex with women sounds really bad. Okay? For the Yezidi people, when Azazel refused to bow, and then copulated and taught the secrets of heaven to humans, God raised him up. God thought that was a good thing and made Azazel the Lord of the earth and called him Melech Taus, or Tawuzi, which literally translates to King Peacock, or the peacock angel. Okay? Rex Mundi, the Lord of the earth. Okay? It gets better. You ready? You ready for this shit? All right. A lot of this has to do with this idea of the redemption of Satan, which is not unique to the Yezidi people. There were other people talking about this, especially the Sufis. Mansur al-Hallaj, depending on your relationship to OTO, that might mean a lot to you. Mansur al-Hallaj, who uttered his word, Ainal Haq, I am the truth, for which he was crucified. Yay, nice people. There is a Yezidi Kuwal. I'm going to try to render for you. I can't sing it, but I'll try to state it. And it goes something like this. Ain Yul Sara, Ain Yul Farah, Ain Yul Haka. I am mystery, I am the infidel, I am the truth. Ain al Haq. Okay? Infidel. Okay? Now usually, the word infidel usually precedes a sword cutting your fucking head off in that part of the world. Okay? There seems to be some indication for the Yezidi that being an infidel is a good thing. It's a good idea. Okay? Or as Crowley would say, the key of joy is disobedience. Okay? Mansur al-Hallaj, by the way, referred to Iblis, Shaitan, Azazel, as the perfect lover, because he refused to bow. For Hallaj and for the Yezidi people, the refusal to bow to Adam is not a story of insolence. It's a story of fidelity. It's a story of monotheism. It's a story of refusal to bow to any but the one ineffable God. Excuse me, I haven't had nearly enough wine. Okay, good? Questions, comments? Yes, please.
Have you come across any references to Argos,
The Greek?
bodied eye?
Yes, I haven't actually. I'm really interested in that.
The
But
Peacock is an Argus.
Argus,
which
yes.
would be Argos, and then it's tail
Right, and obviously the peacock imagery is not unique to the Middle East. In fact, the peacocks they're not indigenous to Iraq, they're indigenous to India, but they've been around for so long. So the Greeks have all kinds of peacock ideas, the Hindus do as well. I haven't found any specific connection. I'd love to, because of course the secret name of the AA is Astramargos, according to Crowley's diaries. Yes?
I feel like the, when they first read the thing with the scapegoat or the god,
Mhm.
that it was originally a joke from the person who first pointed it out, but then somebody saw truth in it, and then it ended up getting in a fight that was passed down through generations. Sort
Could
of
be.
like Facebook.
Could be, who knows? It's an absolutely valid idea, interesting hypothesis. We don't really know. But what we do know is eventually the Hebrew people thought of Azazel not as a goat, but as the god that the goat was supposed to appease. So there, again, is that monotheism? That sounds like dualism at least. Yeah. Otto, did you have a comment or question?
I just wanted to put a thought into your head. Maybe a little obscure, but Albert Pike was really big into the heptad. And I think there may have been some reference to, I doubt there's much reference to Yezidi, but that might be a good place to check out.
Thank you. I will. There's certainly plenty of references from Albert Pike to Lucifer, which would go with this fallen angel archetype. So thank you. Okay. So Azazel, being declared Rex Mundi, the Lord of the Earth, decides to demonstrate his worthiness of that title by creating human life. And his angelic brethren are appalled by this. Only God can create a human being. But we've already seen what Azazel will do. I mean, he'll come down and get busy and do all kinds of shit. So there's no containing this dude, okay? So he decides he's going to create human life. What he does is he takes Adam's seed, places it in a jar, and buries it under a tree. And 9 months later, we get, Sahib ben Jar, which literally translates as the son of the jar, okay? It is from Sahib ben Jar that the Yezidi people believe they are descended. They are not, remember a while back I said they're a race set apart. They are not descended from Adam and Eve. They are descended from Adam and a cock that is God, okay? And I think a lot of academics are a little coy about this. You know, they'll talk about, parthenogenesis or divine intervention. I don't think the Yezidi people see it that way at all. This is not creation of human life by non-sexual means. This is the creation of human life by sex between Adam and Melech Tahuzi. Okay? And that's going to be, that's going to become important even more so.
Interesting
Yes.
connection to the homunculus about
And lots of OTO stuff too, yes.
So, does that mean that they're more friendly towards alternate sexualities?
Yes. And that's part of the reason they're persecuted, okay? This is blasphemy to their neighbors because A, only God can create life, and B, it seems to suggest that angels coming down from heaven and banging people is a good idea. And for most religious groups, they're pretty appalled by that, okay? I didn't know where else to put this, but they believe in a procession of aeons, just like we do, and each aeon is presided over by a ruler, just like we do. The reason I kept this in here is their new year takes place on the first Wednesday of April. And on that day, Tahuzi descends from heaven and takes his throne on earth. And it would be really interesting. I haven't been able to calculate it yet because they don't use our calendar. They use a lunar calendar. It'd be really interesting to find out what was happening on the first Wednesday of the Yezidi New Year, 1904. What was going on with the Crowleys during that time? Yes?
You said they have a lunar calendar, they don't use the Western
Correct.
calendar? How would it be the first Wednesday of April then? I mean, the month must be different.
Their months are different, but they have a month, Nisan. kind of commensurate with April. But that first Wednesday is the...
Same as Nisan in the Jewish calendar.
Yes, it is the same month. Yes.
If it's a lunar calendar, how do they reconcile it with the solar calendar?
We're not sure, and they don't seem to be interested in telling us. And it's not the same. The Kurdish people follow a lunar calendar, but we're pretty sure it's not the same as the Yazidi lunar calendar. So the fact is, I don't know, and I would love to find out. New Year's Day for the Yazidi people, 1904. Where were the Crowleys? You know, that would be very interesting.
What day of the week, 8th of April?
I believe that was a Thursday. So.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, I think so. But again, it would be different in the Yazidi calendar. All right, they very much have a different approach to sexuality than their neighbors. This might be one of the reasons why when Yazidi people are captured by other people, their first thought is to sell them into sexual slavery because they're seen as sexualized people. Very early in contact between Yazidis and non-Yazidis, there was a theory that Tawusi, and that's how they pronounce it in Lalish. You often hear it rendered as Taus or Tausa. That's more of the Turkish or Armenian pronunciation. In Iraq, they usually say Tawuzi. Tawuzi sounds a lot like Damuzi, the Sumerian fertility god. And that was dismissed immediately on the basis that the Yazidi people have no fertility rights, until 4 years ago when we found that the Yazidi people have fertility rights. So there might be something to that. Yazidi women take a plain lingam type object. It's not symbolic, it's a wooden dick, okay, and perform what I would call sexual magic and ask Tawuzi to impregnate them. And it's not at all clear in the literature. Is this women saying, Tawuzi, make me fertile so I may bear children for my husband? Or is it, Tawuzi, make me fertile? Okay, so how far this is from angel love, how far this is from continuing that tradition of angels having sex with humans, how far this is from Ida Craddock, from OTO, is very much up in the air. And the fact is, we don't really know, but it's pretty fucking juicy, okay, if I do say so myself, okay? This goes back to the origins of the Yazidi. The origins of the Yazidi people goes back to sex with angels. Azazel, Adam, angel love, all that shit. Okay, I'll skip over some of that. They are a solar cult. There's no question about that. This is their main symbol. It's a sun, okay, much like us. An 8-pointed star representing the sun is the symbol of the Yazidi people. And depending on your relationship to OTO, an 8-pointed star, 8-pointed sun might mean something to you. Despite the prominence given to Melak Tawuzi and Azazel, if you read the Kuwals, which are available, they're phenomenally expensive to buy, but they are available. If you read the Kuwals, the vast majority of them are not to Tawuzi, they're to Shamash. And there's no question it is the same as the Akkadian Shamash sun god. There's no doubt about that. They perform daily salutations to the sun, just like me. But well, come on, let's not get crazy. Lots of people do that. Sure. They have their own version of Resh. Okay. Early researchers assumed that their Qibla, their holy place, was Lalish, where their shrines and everything are. That's definitely not true. The Yazidi people have come forward to say that they have no terrestrial Qibla. Their Qibla, their holy place, is the stations of the sun in the sky. Okay, they are a solar cult, very specifically. It's going to get weird. You ready? Okay. Should I aim? Okay. Most researchers agree that the peacock imagery may be an echo of pagan cock worship in general, typified by the Babylonian Yungace. Okay, let's talk just a little smidge about the Yungace. Okay, the Yungace are one of the three intelligences described in the Chaldean oracles of Zoroaster. And if you haven't read the Chaldean oracles, I strongly urge you to, because a lot of what passes for modern occultism is completely stolen from the Chaldean oracles of Zoroaster. And in the Chaldean oracles, these yunges are bird spirits associated with air. And the term yunges is usually translated as either whirlings or storms. These are solar bird gods of the storm, okay? I think it's important to remember, you know, a lot of times in the Western world, we think of sky gods as benevolent, Father Sky. You know, the rain comes and the crops grow. In this part of the world, that is not the case at all, okay? Their living is not predicated on the rain. Their living was predicated on the flooding of the Tigris and the Euphrates. And storms in that part of the world are usually destructive. Pazuzu from The Exorcist is a god of the storm. They were afraid of these deities. These were deities that were to be appeased, okay? We should be familiar with this because we're stupid enough to invoke them. When we do our Star Ruby ritual, we face the rising sun and say, Promu Yunges, before me the Yunges, okay? This is a picture from Layard's infamous Nineveh and its remains, really the first archaeological study of Mesopotamia. And this is an image of the Yunges. And what they would do in Babylon is they would take these big bird effigies and put them on some kind of throne or scaffold or whatever, put on their best penis hats, as one does, okay, and march them through the village. And the villagers would make sacrifices to the Yunges to appease them. Please don't storm on us, Yunges. Here's a fucking goat. Here you go. All right? Check it out. Yeah. This is what's known as the Sun Jock. There are 7 of them. They are bronze statues in Nineveh. Okay? They are not Taozi. People used to think they were. They're definitely not. We don't know what they're supposed to be. And guess what the Yezidi people do? They put them on a throne, march them around the village with their penis hats, and people give them offerings, usually in the form of fire in their hands and money. Money is the modern equivalent to cutting the throat of a goat. Okay? I don't know. Kind of similar. Okay? There's more. So the Yunges are these gods of the storm, these bird deities of the storm. Well, the Yezidi people have that too. Okay? And this is where it's like pagan, not pagan, pagan. Okay? They have a god of the storm that they call Mama Rasa. Okay? Which means the black storm. Mama means storm, Rasa means black. And in Yezidi, black usually indicates a supernatural being. So if somebody's called XXX the Black, that means they're not human. They're Ozzy Rasa, yeah. Ozzy Rasa, Ozzy the Black. Okay, you can talk about that. When Mama Rasa, the Black Storm, decides to incarnate as a human being, he is called Abrus, thunder. Now in that part of the world, people are often called holy. They're a holy people, okay? They're, you know, dervishes and peers and emirs and all that. And, yeah. And the generic term for a holy person is sheikh. But the Yezidi, as I've said many times, usually pronounce that shach, okay? So, holy thunder, Abru Shach. Can I get a holy shit? Yeah. Abru Shach. Now let's not go crazy, okay? I mean, the homologies are whatever they are. You can't, just because something sounds like something else doesn't make it. It's like, you know, you can't decide that the Bible is like a metaphor for marijuana legalization because God is called the Most High. You know, it sounds cool, but it's probably not true. Okay, and that's right. That's what Crowley would say anyway. However, in addition to this, the Yezidi have a ceremony called the ceremony of the calling of the rain. And during that ceremony, they talk to Mama Rasan and Abru Shak. And they say, Mama Rasan is a lion. His whip is a snake. So we have not only Abru Shak, but also a lion serpent. Okay? They go on further, and depending on your relationship to OTO, this might mean something to you. His fury is soothed by a stone-made liquid. That might mean something to you. It means something to me. Okay. So, it's cool shit. It's not good academic stuff, but it's really kind of weird and creepy and holy shit. Okay?
When they invoke these people now, do they use a circle?
Don't know.
No.
Don't know.
Your creative intelligence.
Don't know. I have no idea how they do this. I've only read the Kowals. So, I would love to see them do shit, but they don't let people from the outside come in very often.
Yeah.
I have no credibility, so they're not going to listen to me. You know, I don't think that Yazidi people would be terribly flattered to know that there's a Yazidi Thelema connection. So I think if OTO people descended upon Lalish, we'd be kicked out. So. Drones, right? Okay. So, lion serpent, Abru Shak, Azazel. First there is a Satan, then there is no Satan, then there is. Okay? Is Melech Tawuzi the devil? Are Yazidi people devil worshippers? Well, if by devil worshippers you mean like Hammer Horror, you know, Dennis Wheatley, gonna steal your babies and eat them kind of shit, no, obviously not. Okay? But if you can acknowledge that to Christians, Muslims, Jews, and other people, Azazel, Shaitan, Abru Shak, these are their devil, then it's definitely true. They're not devil worshippers, but then they kind of are, much like Thelemites. We're not devil worshippers, but Satan's real fucking important in Thelema. So is Christ, but so is Satan. Okay? So if you can acknowledge that Azazel, Iblis, Shaitan, Satan, if you can remember that Levi, Blavatsky, and Crowley all identified Baphomet, O lion serpent son, as Azazel, it's not an unfair characterization. Okay? It's only unfair in the sense that we're not going to steal your babies. Okay? In many places, Crowley equates Aiwaz with Satan, and so we go back to our beginning premise. Aiwaz is not, as I had supposed, a mere formula like many angelic names, but it is the true most ancient name of the god of the Yazidis, and thus returns to the highest antiquity. I don't think Crowley was particularly interested in the Yazidi themselves. I think, like a lot of people at that time, he believed erroneously that the Yazidi were a genuine survival of ancient Sumerian paganism. And Crowley went through great pains to legitimize Thelema. It had to have a spiritual dispensation, but it also had to have a historical root and a genuine mystery tradition. And for Crowley, he decided that was Sumer. Why? Probably because they didn't know a lot about Sumer at the time. You could let your imagination run wild. Everyone was sick of Egypt by then, you know. And the Golden Dawn had fucking played Egypt to death, okay? So, okay, why not? I mean, Crowley was a believer in this weird idea back then that there was a one original religion, and that's what we were trying to get to. And he believed that was Sumer, and he believed the Yazidis got us to Sumer. Probably not true. Okay, so is Aiwaz the secret name of the Yazidi? Well, I've read, I think, everything in the English language associated with Yazidi research, and I've never seen the word Aiwaz applied to their god, okay? But Samuel Aiwaz Jacobs said that that's what it was, okay? And maybe he was trying to communicate something a little less literal. Maybe he was trying to communicate something a little fuzzy and in between and magic-y, okay? So let's talk about that. What's in a name? Crowley states in another part of the unpublished introduction, the new commentary to Liber Legis, another brother, again, he's definitely talking about Jacob's, informs me that Iwaz means servitor or messenger, especially cupbearer. And this is in strict accordance with his function as logos. And this is not incorrect, okay? Crowley claimed that 1904 was the first time he ever heard the name Iwaz. I find that impossible to believe. I think he was lying, okay? For example, he would lie? No, not Crowley. In Turkish theater, there are stock characters, one of which is an Armenian waiter or butler called Ayvaz, okay? This is their equivalent to our British butler Jeeves, okay? We see that all the time. We have a fucking stereotype of this, British butler, hand behind the, and we call him Jeeves. In Turkish theater, that is an Armenian waiter called Ayvaz. One of the weirdest things in the Confessions is when Crowley's talking about the Cairo experience with the Book of the Law, he takes great pains to point out that just prior to the reception of all this material, he and Rose went to a Greek restaurant and they were served by an Armenian waiter. If that's true, that Armenian waiter was probably called the Ayvaz, okay? Further, in 1886, Mary Walker in Eastern Life and Scenery, which Crowley probably read, stated that the Ayvaz is basically the head butler. And notice the different spelling, too. Ayvaz was the head butler of a Turkish household. In 1877, the London Society published a description of Turkish women and their escorts and called those escorts Ayvaz, or messengers, who carried paper lanterns, just like our hermit in the tarot, okay? I find it hard to believe that Crowley didn't know about this. In Kurmanji, the language of the Yezidi people, the word Ayvaz means something too. It means the voice. There are several words for voice in Kurmanji. This particular word is usually applied to very special qawwals, very special hymns, where Melek Tawuzi is speaking to them. So those hymns are called Ayvaz, okay? So was Jacob's being literal? Maybe, maybe not. Was Ayvaz literally the name of the god of the Yazidis? Maybe not. But Ayvaz as a voice, minister, messenger, waiter, the voice of the silence, the minister of Hor Par Krat. Love is the law, love under will. Thank you very much.